Most people never figure it out. They drift, they hope, they chase motivation, but they never understand why they always fall short. Then there's the 20%. The small minority who seem unstoppable. They don't start and quit. They don't hope and wait. They move, they win, and they keep winning. Here's their secret: habits. Not random habits. Not try when it feels good routines. But a set of non-negotiable disciplines that make success inevitable. And the shocking truth? It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's not even about motivation. It's about the code the 20% run daily, the habits that lock in momentum until winning becomes automatic. The 80% stuck in drift. Look at the majority. They wake up and check their phone before they even check in with their own mind. They start projects with excitement but abandon them at the first sign of resistance. They rely on bursts of energy instead of consistent patterns. Their lives feel random because their habits are random. They live in drift, tossed around by mood and circumstance. The 20% anchored by habits. Now look at the minority. They wake up and immediately run a morning ritual that locks their focus. They train their bodies daily, not for motivation, but because health is identity. They invest time in learning, reading, creating non-negotiables, not options. Their days may look ordinary, but their results are extraordinary. Why? Because they've coded habits that build unstoppable momentum. Napoleon Hill's wisdom. Hill said, "You are where you are because of your habits. You may change where you are by changing your habits." The 20% took this literally. They rewrote their future by rewriting their daily disciplines. Why habits make winning inevitable. Habits remove negotiation. When something is a habit, you don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" You just act. Habits build identity. Every repetition is a vote for who you are. The 20% don't just do disciplined things, they become disciplined people. Habits compound over time. Small daily actions stack into massive results. What feels invisible today becomes undeniable tomorrow. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% let moods decide. The 20% let habits decide. That's why the 80% live random outcomes, while the 20% live inevitable victories. Your shift today. Stop chasing random bursts. Stop waiting for luck. Stop treating habits as optional. Start building the non-negotiables. Start installing the disciplines the 20% live by. Start coding habits so strong they don't just influence your results, they guarantee them. Because the secret the 20% know is simple: habits make winning inevitable. The majority don't fail because they lack potential. They don't fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because their habits betray them. Their daily patterns, the invisible scripts running beneath the surface, are coded for drift, not destiny. That's why they stay stuck. That's why their results look chaotic. The habits of the 80%. Look closely at the average person's day. Morning drift. They start the day reactive, grabbing the phone, drowning in notifications before their own mind is awake. Inconsistent effort. They push hard one day, then slack for 3. Their energy is scattered, their progress always resets to 0. Comfort seeking. They choose entertainment over execution, distraction over discipline. Comfort becomes their default habit. Excuse loops. Each missed action gets justified: "I'll start tomorrow. I was too busy. It wasn't the right time." These aren't just actions. They are programs. Run them daily, and you guarantee mediocrity. Why these habits kill progress? They create randomness. When you start each day without a system, your results are left to chance. They destroy momentum. Inconsistency breaks the compounding effect. Every time you stop, you erase your own progress. They reinforce weak identity. Every excuse becomes evidence: "I can't stay consistent. I'm not disciplined." Identity collapses under the weight of repeated failure. The psychology of the 80%. The truth is brutal, the majority don't even realize their habits are the problem. They think they failed because they weren't motivated enough. They think others succeed because they're lucky or talented. They never trace their outcomes back to their inputs, the daily disciplines they ignore. That blindness keeps them trapped. They blame chance instead of seeing the code. Napoleon Hill's warning. Hill wrote, "You can't control the external world, but you can control yourself. That control, practiced daily, is the key to all achievement." The 80% never practice daily control. They surrender control to moods, to distractions, to circumstances. That's why achievement never comes. The 20% contrast. The minority don't waste energy fighting the same battles. They don't negotiate with excuses every day. Why? Because their habits are already coded. They've decided once, and then the system runs without debate. That's the difference. The 80% start from scratch every morning, while the 20% run the same winning code every day. Your shift today. Look at your own routines honestly. Ask yourself, am I starting my day with intention or with drift? Are my habits compounding progress or resetting me to zero? Am I building excuses or building identity? Because until you confront the habits that betray you, you'll stay stuck in the 80%. The secret of the 20% isn't talent or luck, it's that they fixed their habits. They coded their days to guarantee victory. The 20% don't look that different on the surface. They wake up like you do. They eat, work, rest, and face the same obstacles as everyone else. But if you zoom into their daily code, you'll see something radically different: their habits. These aren't random actions, they are designed systems. Their habits run like clockwork, and that's why their results look inevitable. The habits of the 20%. They start with intention. The 20% don't wake up reacting to noise. They wake up and execute a ritual: prayer, journaling, training, reading that locks their mind before the world intrudes. They anchor keystone actions. Instead of chasing everything, they focus on a few high-leverage habits: exercise, focused work, learning, that compound into results across every area of life. They remove negotiation. They don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" The decision was made once. Now it's automated. They track and review. Every habit has evidence. They log, review, and adjust. Success isn't hope, it's measured. The rhythm of the 20%. Their days look ordinary, even boring to outsiders. But inside the boring repetition lies extraordinary compounding. Daily training becomes lifelong strength. Daily writing becomes books. Daily learning becomes mastery. Daily saving becomes wealth. The 80% chase excitement. The 20% chase rhythm. And rhythm builds inevitability. Napoleon Hill's alignment. Hill said, "Success comes to those who become success conscious." Habits are consciousness made visible. The 20% have coded their consciousness into daily actions. They don't hope to be successful, they live success every day through the disciplines they repeat. Why these habits guarantee winning? They stack momentum. Each repetition fuels the next. The chain grows unbreakable. They forge identity. Every completed habit reinforces, I am disciplined. I am consistent. I finish. They outlast motivation. Habits execute when emotions collapse. The system keeps moving even when willpower dies. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% build fragile routines based on moods. The 20% build permanent codes based on discipline. The difference isn't dramatic effort, it's quiet consistency. That's why the 20% look unstoppable. Your shift today. Stop chasing hacks, shortcuts, and bursts of inspiration. Start building the boring, repeatable rhythms the 20% live by. Ask yourself, what's my morning ritual? What's my keystone habit? Where am I still negotiating instead of automating? Because the 20% don't win by accident. They win because their habits guarantee it. Discipline is where it starts. But if you try to run on discipline alone, you will eventually burn out. Willpower is like a muscle, it can be trained, but it fatigues. The 20% know this. That's why they use discipline not as the destination, but as the bridge to habit. Discipline pushes the first repetitions. Habits take over and automate them. Once the crossover happens, you no longer fight to act. You act automatically. The first phase, pure discipline. At the beginning, every new action feels heavy. The first early wake-up is a war with your bed. The first workout is a battle with resistance. The first budgeting session is a fight against impulse. This is the grind. The cost of entry. This is where the 80% quit. The second phase, repetition. If you persist, something begins to shift. The alarm rings, and your body starts expecting to move. The workout feels less foreign and more natural. The budgeting session feels less like deprivation and more like clarity. Each repetition engraves a groove in your subconscious. Each choice reinforces identity. I am someone who does this. The third phase, habit installed. Suddenly, the war is gone. You wake up early without debate. You train because it feels wrong not to. You budget because order feels natural. Discipline has transformed into habit. Action is now identity. Napoleon Hill's insight. Hill wrote, "Any idea, plan, or purpose may be placed in the mind through repetition of thought. Repetition is the bridge. Discipline applies the first force. Habits harden it into permanence." Why habits outlast discipline? Habits remove decision fatigue. You don't waste energy choosing, you simply do. Habits override emotion. Whether you feel motivated or not doesn't matter, the system runs. Habits compound. Each repetition strengthens the groove, making drift less likely. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% treat discipline like punishment, quitting before the crossover. The 20% treat discipline like an investment, pushing until habit takes over. That's why most drift forever while the minority break through. How to cross from discipline to habit. 1. Commit to a minimum streak. Decide you won't judge the habit until after 30, 60, or 90 days. 2. Shrink the action. Make it small enough to repeat even on bad days, 1 push-up, 1 page, $1 saved. 3. Use identity language. Don't say, "I'm trying to work out." Say, "I'm a person who trains." 4. Remove triggers of drift. Design your environment to support the action until it locks in. Your shift today. Stop expecting discipline to last forever on raw effort. Stop quitting in the painful first phase. Stop thinking struggle means failure. Instead, use discipline as the bridge. Repeat until the bridge turns into a highway. Let habit take over. Because once discipline transforms into habit, success stops being a battle. It becomes your nature. Most people think success is mysterious. They think winners must have some secret advantage, special talent, rare luck, or hidden resources. But the 20% know better. They know success is math. It's not mystery. It's not magic. It's numbers stacked day after day until the equation becomes impossible to deny. The math of habits. Every habit you repeat is a number in your equation. 1 workout isn't much. But 300 workouts a year is transformation. 1 page of writing is small. But 365 pages in a year is a book. $1 saved feels tiny. But daily saving compounds into wealth. It's not random. It's not luck. It's math. Why the 80% don't see it? The majority quit before the math adds up. They expect 1 workout to equal instant strength. They expect 1 action to produce overnight change. When the immediate equation doesn't add up, they abandon the formula. They confuse delay with denial. They don't see that compounding requires persistence. Why the 20% trust the formula? The minority don't chase instant outcomes. They trust the math. They know 1% daily improvement compounds into massive gains. They know small wins stack like bricks until the wall of mastery is built. They know time is the multiplier, habits repeated long enough make winning inevitable. For them, consistency is the calculator. They don't need to hope. They run the equation until results appear. Napoleon Hill's reminder. Hill said, "Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out." That's the math. Not talent. Not luck. Small efforts, multiplied daily, until results compound beyond imagination. The compounding curve. Progress doesn't look linear. It looks invisible, then explosive. For weeks, nothing seems to change. Then suddenly, momentum erupts. The curve bends upward, and everyone else calls it luck. But you know the truth, the curve is math. It was coded by habits long before the explosion. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% demand immediate results and quit before the curve turns. The 20% persist through the invisible phase, trusting the math until it bends upward. That's why the minority harvests what the majority never sees. How to use habit math. 1. Choose keystone actions. Pick small daily disciplines that compound: fitness, learning, creating, saving. 2. Track the equation. Log your inputs. Don't argue with feelings, show yourself the numbers. 3. Protect consistency. One missed day is small, but repeated misses break the formula. Protect the streak. 4. Zoom out. Judge results yearly, not daily. Compounding needs time to reveal itself. Your shift today. Stop treating results as mystery. Stop blaming chance when the math doesn't add up instantly. Stop quitting in the invisible phase. Instead, run the equation. Trust the math of habits. Stack numbers daily until the outcome explodes. Because the 20% know a truth the 80% ignore, winning is not luck. It's math. And habits are the formula. When you imagine winning, you probably think of the big moments, the championship trophy, the $1 million deal, the viral breakthrough. But the 20% know the truth: big wins are never built in the spotlight. They are built in silence, in the shadows, through small victories repeated daily until they snowball into momentum that cannot be stopped. The illusion of big wins. The 80% chase dramatic change. They overhaul their diets in 1 week, then quit. They set massive goals with no system, then collapse under pressure. They sprint with intensity, then burn out when results aren't immediate. They despise small beginnings. They want fireworks, not embers. And that's why they fail. The 20% understand small wins. The disciplined minority knows small wins are everything. 1 clean meal today is a small win for health. 1 page written today is a small win for creativity. 1 call made today is a small win for business. Each win feels tiny in isolation. But stacked daily, they build unstoppable momentum. The snowball grows until it becomes an avalanche. Napoleon Hill's wisdom. Hill said, "Victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting." Small wins are the proof you keep fighting. They don't feel like victory in the moment, but each one is a brick in the fortress of persistence. Why small wins work? They build momentum. The hardest part is starting. Each small win removes resistance for the next. They shape identity. Every tiny action is a vote: I am disciplined. I am persistent. I am a finisher. They are sustainable. Big leaps exhaust you. Small wins energize you. You can repeat them forever. They compound quietly. Like drops of water carving stone, small wins rewrite your future without fanfare. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% dismiss small actions as meaningless. The 20% see small actions as destiny. That's why the 80% quit while the 20% keep stacking victories until momentum breaks the wall of resistance. How to stack small wins. 1. Shrink the habit. Make it so small it's impossible to fail. 1 push-up, 1 paragraph, 1 deposit. 2. Protect the chain. Never let the streak break. Missing once is a mistake, missing twice is a new habit. 3. Celebrate progress. Don't wait for big wins to celebrate. Let every small victory fuel your persistence. 4. Focus on today. Forget the mountain. Conquer the next step. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Macro-micro momentum. At the macro level, small wins create revolutions. At the micro level, they are almost invisible, tiny actions anyone could ignore. But over time, invisible victories become undeniable destiny. Your shift today. Stop chasing fireworks. Stop despising small beginnings. Stop quitting when your actions feel too small to matter. Instead, stack small wins daily. Let them snowball into unstoppable force. Trust the avalanche of momentum to carry you forward. Because the 20% know, it's not one big leap that makes you unstoppable. It's small wins, stacked until resistance breaks. Everyone loves speed. Fast results. Quick wins. Overnight success. That's why the 80% sprint hard at the start but collapse before the finish line. They treat success like a race of bursts instead of a marathon of endurance. But the 20%? They know the truth, persistence compounds. Endurance is the rarest, most powerful advantage. The 80% addiction to speed. The majority crave intensity but can't sustain it. They dive into a new routine with fire but burn out within weeks. They pour all their energy into a project but quit when the first setback arrives. They sprint for short-term wins and never stay long enough for compounding to reward them. Their lives are littered with unfinished attempts. They confuse intensity with consistency, speed with staying power. The 20% obsession with persistence. The minority understand that slow consistency beats fast inconsistency every time. They'd rather improve 1% daily for years than chase unsustainable leaps. They value streaks, not sprints. They know compounding rewards those who endure, not those who rush. That's why they always look unstoppable. They keep showing up long after others have quit. Napoleon Hill's truth. Hill wrote, "There is no substitute for persistence." The person who makes persistence his watchword discovers that old man failure finally becomes tired and makes his departure. Failure doesn't quit because of your brilliance. It quits because of your persistence. Why persistence beats speed? Habits require time. Repetition engraves grooves into your subconscious. Persistence deepens them until habits become automatic. Results require seasons. Seeds don't sprout instantly. Persistence keeps you planting until the harvest arrives. Obstacles require staying power. Speed crashes against resistance. Persistence outlasts it. The compounding effect of endurance. A single workout means little. A year of workouts transforms your body. A decade of workouts makes health inevitable. That's the power of compounding persistence. What feels small daily becomes unstoppable over time. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% sprint and burn out. The 20% pace themselves and outlast. Speed impresses the crowd. Endurance builds the legend. How to build endurance into your code. 1. Lower the starting bar. Don't start at 100%. Start at 50% you can sustain forever. 2. Track streaks, not intensity. Your identity grows stronger with every consecutive day you show up. 3. Redefine success as continuity. If you didn't quit today, you won. Tomorrow, win again. 4. Anchor with identity. Tell yourself, I am someone who persists. I outlast. Macro-micro persistence. At the macro level, persistence guarantees destiny. At the micro level, it looks boring, showing up again today. But the boring is where legends are built. Your shift today. Stop chasing speed. Stop craving instant results. Stop burning out in sprints that never last. Instead, honor persistence. Show up today. Show up tomorrow. Show up until the compounding curve bends upward and the world calls you unstoppable. Because the 20% know, speed fades. Persistence compounds. And persistence always wins. Most people fear resistance. They see obstacles as proof they're on the wrong path. They treat setbacks as reasons to stop. They believe adversity means not meant for me. But the 20%? They see resistance differently. To them, resistance isn't punishment. It's nourishment. It's the very fuel that makes habits stronger, discipline sharper, and results inevitable. The 80% response to resistance. The majority collapse at the first sign of pressure. One rejection and they abandon the project. One failure and they label themselves incapable. One bad day and they convince themselves they're not cut out for it. They misinterpret the signal. Resistance is not the end, it's the training ground. But the 80% treat it like a stop sign, so their habits never harden into identity. The 20% response, resistance as reps. The minority know every pushback is a rep in the gym of discipline. When life resists, they lean in. When failure hits, they adapt. When obstacles rise, they see proof they're pushing in the right direction. They use resistance to condition their habits. Just as muscles need weight to grow, habits need friction to solidify. Napoleon Hill's perspective. Hill wrote, "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. The 20% don't wait for that seed to sprout, they plant it with persistence. They water it with discipline. They harvest the strength that adversity was designed to deliver." Why resistance strengthens habits. Exposure reveals weakness. Resistance shows where your system cracks. Without it, you'd never see the flaws to fix. Friction builds endurance. The struggle today makes tomorrow's action easier. Each push against adversity engraves the habit deeper. Victory reinforces identity. Every time you persist through resistance, you prove to yourself, I am not fragile. I outlast. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% avoid pain, so they never build resilience. The 20% embrace pain, so they build unbreakable systems. What feels like punishment to the majority feels like progress to the minority. How to turn resistance into fuel. 1. Reframe the signal. When adversity hits, don't ask why me? Ask, what is this building in me? 2. Shrink the battle. Face the resistance in pieces. One step at a time, one rep at a time. 3. Record the wins. Every time you push through, log it. The evidence of resilience strengthens identity. 4. Seek controlled struggle. Train discipline in low-stakes resistance so you're ready when high-stakes adversity comes. Macro-micro resistance. At the macro level, seasons of adversity forge legends. At the micro level, it's just another day of showing up through discomfort. One rep today. One step tomorrow. Over time, the resistance that once scared you becomes the reason you cannot be stopped. Your shift today. Stop running from resistance. Stop interpreting adversity as failure. Stop quitting when the weight gets heavy. Instead, embrace resistance as proof of growth. See every obstacle as a rep, let adversity feed your habits instead of breaking them. Because the 20% know, resistance isn't punishment, it's nourishment. And the more resistance you face, the stronger your code becomes. Discipline can push you for a while. Willpower can carry you through a few battles. But if every action always feels like a fight, you will eventually break. The 20% know the secret. Don't keep discipline on the surface, bury it into the subconscious. Once habits are coded into your deeper mind, action stops being effortful. It becomes automatic, like breathing, walking, or tying your shoes. Why the subconscious matters. Your subconscious runs most of your life already. You don't consciously think about each breath, you just breathe. You don't analyze every step you take, you just walk. You don't debate brushing your teeth, it happens because it's encoded. Now imagine if training, writing, saving, or creating felt just as automatic. Imagine if discipline wasn't a decision, it was a reflex. That's what subconscious programming does. The 80% live in surface struggle. The majority never get past the conscious fight. They rely on willpower alone. They drag themselves into habits day after day, always negotiating, always resisting. Eventually, exhaustion wins and they quit. They never install the code deep enough for it to run without effort. The 20% install discipline into identity. The minority push past the surface. They repeat actions until the subconscious accepts, this is who I am. They use affirmations, visualization, and evidence to engrave new patterns. They persist until discipline is no longer something they do, but someone they are. That's why the 20% look like machines. They're not forcing action, they're running code. Napoleon Hill's wisdom. Hill said, "The subconscious mind will translate into its physical equivalent, by the most direct and practical method, any order that is given to it in a state of belief. Belief plus repetition engraves the order. The subconscious then executes it faithfully, without hesitation." How to program habits into the subconscious. 1. Affirm with emotion. Say it daily, I am disciplined. I do what I say. Words without emotion fade. Words with conviction engrave. 2. Visualize in detail. See yourself acting out the habit. Picture the environment, the effort, the satisfaction. The mind codes imagined experience almost as strongly as real. 3. Repeat relentlessly. Consistency is the language of the subconscious. Feed it the same command every day until it becomes truth. 4. Back it with action. Affirmations and visualizations collapse without evidence. Each real action proves the code. Each repetition deepens the groove. The feedback loop. Conscious effort sparks repetition. Repetition builds belief. Belief engraves subconscious programming. Subconscious automation sustains identity. This loop transforms fragile willpower into unstoppable instinct. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% rely on surface effort, so every day is a struggle. The 20% rely on subconscious code, so every day is automatic. One burns out. The other compounds. Macro-micro programming. At the macro level, subconscious programming rewires destiny. At the micro level, it's just one affirmation, one visualization, one repeated action today. Tiny codes installed daily until the system rewrites itself. Your shift today. Stop relying on surface willpower. Stop treating every action as a negotiation. Stop quitting because it always feels like a fight. Instead, program your habits into the subconscious. Repeat, affirm, visualize, and act until discipline is no longer effort. It's who you are. Because the 20% know, winning becomes inevitable when discipline is not conscious, it's coded. Your subconscious doesn't care what you say. It only cares what you can prove. You can tell yourself all day, I am disciplined, I am consistent, I am a finisher. But if there's no evidence, your subconscious will reject it. It will whisper back, no, you've quit before. You don't follow through. That's why the 20% use a tool most people ignore, evidence. They don't just repeat habits, they record them, track them, and show their mind undeniable proof. The 80% lie blind. The majority drift because they never measure. They say they're trying to work out, but they don't log their sessions. They say they're saving money, but they don't count deposits. They say they're being productive, but they never track time or output. Without proof, every effort feels invisible. And when progress feels invisible, motivation dies. They quit, not because they weren't capable, but because they erased their own evidence. The 20% collect proof. The disciplined minority builds systems of evidence. They track workouts, even if it's just one set. They log words written, even if it's just a paragraph. They record streaks, even if it's just one check mark on the calendar. Every log, every mark, every entry is proof. And proof is powerful. It tells the subconscious, this is real. I do this. This is who I am. Napoleon Hill's alignment. Hill said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." But belief isn't wishful thinking. Belief is evidence stacked so high the mind cannot deny it. The 20% feed their subconscious proof until belief becomes unshakable. Why feedback locks habits? Evidence builds identity. Each logged action is a vote. Over time, the pile of votes outweighs doubt. Feedback fuels persistence. When you see progress, no matter how small, motivation reignites. Tracking reveals truth. Numbers don't lie. If you missed, the log shows it. If you showed up, the log proves it. Progress becomes tangible. Abstract goals become visible growth. That visibility reinforces discipline. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% rely on feelings, I don't feel like I'm making progress. The 20% rely on proof, the log shows I'm making progress. Feelings fade. Proof endures. How to use evidence to lock the habit code. 1. Pick one metric. Decide the simplest measurable unit: pages, reps, minutes, dollars. 2. Track daily. Even if it's just a mark, log it. Gaps in data reveal gaps in discipline. 3. Review weekly. Take 5 minutes to see your progress. Celebrate the streak. Adjust if needed. 4. Let proof rewrite identity. Each mark isn't just data, it's identity. I am disciplined. I finish. Macro-micro proof. At the macro level, evidence builds a track record so strong it defines destiny. At the micro level, it's just today's mark, today's note, today's streak. But over months and years, those marks silence all doubt. Your shift today. Stop living blind. Stop relying on feelings. Stop letting your subconscious call you a liar. Instead, track. Log. Collect proof. Feed your mind evidence so undeniable it has no choice but to believe, this is who I am. Because the 20% know, habits don't just survive on repetition, they thrive on proof. And when proof stacks high enough, winning becomes inevitable. You can build habits alone. You can push yourself with discipline. You can even track and prove your progress. But if you want to make your habits unbreakable, you need leverage beyond yourself, accountability and community. The 20% don't just rely on internal willpower. They surround themselves with external forces that make quitting almost impossible. The 80% hide in silence. The majority keep their goals private. They say nothing, so no one notices when they quit. They drift quietly, so failure carries no cost. They never invite pressure, so their excuses stay safe. Silence protects weakness. And because no one expects more from them, they never demand more from themselves. The 20% expose themselves. The minority do the opposite. They declare their commitments out loud. They find accountability partners who won't let them off the hook. They embed themselves in communities where discipline is the standard, not the exception. For them, accountability isn't a burden, it's leverage. They raise the cost of quitting so high that persistence becomes the only option. Napoleon Hill's mastermind principle. Hill wrote, "No two minds ever come together without, thereby, creating a third, invisible intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind. That third mind is the energy of accountability. When you join with others who demand discipline, your own discipline multiplies." Why accountability works. It raises the stakes. When others know your goals, failure isn't private anymore. The fear of letting others down keeps you moving. It removes excuses. The lies you tell yourself can't survive when someone else is checking your progress. It builds momentum. Shared progress creates energy. Victories compound when celebrated together. It sets standards. When your circle treats discipline as normal, you will too. Environment defines expectation. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% surround themselves with people who normalize excuses. The 20% surround themselves with people who normalize execution. That one choice determines whether their habits weaken or strengthen. How to build accountability into your habits. 1. Declare publicly. Tell someone your goal. Post it. Make the stakes real. 2. Find your circle. Seek communities where action is expected and excuses are exposed. 3. Track together. Share progress logs. Celebrate streaks. Challenge each other. 4. Add consequences. Attach pain to quitting, financial penalties, lost privileges, public admission. Pain enforces persistence. Macro-micro accountability. At the macro level, accountability builds culture. At the micro level, it's just one message, one check-in, one progress report. But those small external pressures compound into unshakable internal discipline. Your shift today. Stop hiding your goals. Stop protecting your excuses with silence. Stop pretending you can do it all alone. Instead, invite accountability. Build alliances. Surround yourself with a community that demands your best. Because the 20% know, discipline alone is strong, but discipline multiplied by accountability is unbreakable. And when your habits are unbreakable, winning becomes inevitable. Your willpower isn't infinite. No matter how strong your discipline feels, if your environment fights against you every day, eventually you'll lose. The 20% understand this. They don't leave their success up to chance. They engineer their environment so that discipline is easy, and drift is difficult. Their surroundings become a silent partner in their habits, nudging them toward winning automatically. The 80% environment, built for distraction. Look at the average person's space. Phones buzzing with constant notifications. Desks cluttered with junk instead of tools. Kitchens stocked with sugar and quick fixes instead of fuel. Bedrooms designed for entertainment instead of recovery. Then they wonder why they can't focus, why their energy collapses, why discipline doesn't stick. The truth? Their environment is coded for failure. The 20% environment, built for discipline. The minority take control. They keep gym shoes by the door, making training frictionless. They put books and journals on the desk, hiding the phone in a drawer. They stock their kitchens with clean fuel that supports energy. They design spaces with single-purpose clarity, work here, rest there, train there. They don't fight their environment. They design it to fight for them. Napoleon Hill's reminder. Hill wrote, "The subconscious mind makes no distinction between constructive and destructive thought impulses. It works with the material we feed it. Your environment is constant input. Chaos feeds distraction. Order feeds focus. Clutter feeds drift. Clarity feeds discipline. What you surround yourself with, you eventually become." Why environment shapes habits. It removes friction. If the right choice is the easy choice, you'll make it. It blocks temptation. If the wrong choice is hard to access, it dies. It provides triggers. Objects and cues remind your subconscious what to do. It reinforces identity. When your space reflects order, your identity follows. I am disciplined. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% expect willpower to overpower chaos. The 20% design their environment so willpower isn't even necessary. That single decision determines whether discipline survives or collapses. How to design an environment that enforces habits. 1. Make good habits obvious. Put tools, journals, workout gear, or healthy food in plain sight. 2. Make bad habits invisible. Delete the apps, hide the snacks, remove temptations before they call. 3. Assign spaces purpose. Don't blur boundaries. Work at a desk, sleep in a bed, train in a gym space. Each place tells your brain what to do. 4. Reset nightly. Prepare your environment before tomorrow arrives. Lay out clothes, clear clutter, stage tools. Macro-micro environment design. At the macro level, your environment shapes your destiny. At the micro level, it's just moving one object, clearing one space, hiding one distraction today. But over time, those tiny adjustments forge an environment that makes discipline inevitable. Your shift today. Stop blaming yourself for failing in a hostile environment. Stop expecting willpower to win battles your space keeps triggering. Stop living in chaos and wondering why you drift. Instead, take control of your surroundings. Design spaces that align with your code. Let your environment push you toward discipline, not pull you away from it. Because the 20% no, environment isn't neutral. It's either your ally or your enemy. And when your environment enforces your habits, winning is inevitable. One habit is powerful. One supportive environment is helpful. One accountability partner is motivating. One act of discipline can change a day. But the 20% don't stop at one. They integrate everything into a complete system, a fortress of discipline where every element reinforces the other. That's why their success looks inevitable. It's not one thing. It's everything, working together. The 80% fragmented attempts. The majority dabble. They try a workout routine, but their kitchen is stocked with junk food. They build a morning ritual, but their nights are chaotic and unplanned. They find an accountability buddy, but their environment still tempts drift. Their progress collapses because their system is incomplete. Weak links break the chain. The 20% integrated code. The minority weave every strand together into one unbreakable rope. Discipline sparks the first actions. Habits automate those actions into identity. Environment reinforces discipline by removing friction. Accountability amplifies persistence by raising the stakes. Each element feeds the others. The system sustains itself. That's why the 20% don't collapse when motivation fades. They built a structure too strong to fall. Napoleon Hill's alignment. Hill's mastermind principle wasn't just about people. It was about synergy. He wrote, "When two or more minds are coordinated in a spirit of harmony, the energy created is greater than the sum of its parts." The same is true with your habits. When discipline, environment, and accountability harmonize, the energy multiplies. One element alone is strong. Together, they're unstoppable. Why integration creates inevitability? Redundancy protects you. If willpower fails, environment supports. If environment fails, accountability holds. No single failure collapses the system. Momentum multiplies. Each element accelerates the others. Habits build faster in the right space. Accountability makes them stick longer. Identity becomes unshakable. When every corner of your life reflects discipline, you stop trying to be consistent. You are consistent. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% hope one new hack will change their life. The 20% design systems that make change inevitable. The difference isn't effort, it's integration. How to build your system. 1. Anchor habits. Pick 2 to 3 keystone actions that define your day. 2. Shape environment. Make those actions frictionless and temptations invisible. 3. Add accountability. Declare your habits publicly or join a community where standards are high. 4. Repeat until identity shifts. Persistence hardens the system into who you are. Macro-micro integration. At the macro level, integration guarantees destiny. At the micro level, it's just small links, laying out clothes, sending a check-in, logging a habit. Each link strengthens the chain until it becomes unbreakable. Your shift today. Stop patching your discipline with one-off fixes. Stop expecting a single habit to change your life in isolation. Stop hoping fragments will create a fortress. Instead, integrate. Build the complete code: discipline, habits, environment, accountability. Let them reinforce each other until quitting feels unnatural and persistence feels inevitable. Because the 20% know, when the system is integrated, winning isn't just possible, it's the only option. You've seen the difference. The 80% drift, hoping, waiting, quitting. The 20% install habits so strong that winning stops being luck, it becomes destiny. At the core of it all lies the final transformation: identity. Because the ultimate goal isn't just to do disciplined things. The ultimate goal is to become a disciplined person. When habits are no longer something you perform but something you embody, the game changes forever. From action to identity. At first, habits feel like effort. They are actions you choose. Then they become patterns you repeat. But eventually, they become who you are. You don't try to work out. You are an athlete. You don't force yourself to write. You are a creator. You don't make yourself save. You are a builder of wealth. Identity locks in results. And once identity shifts, quitting feels unnatural. Napoleon Hill's alignment. Hill wrote, "You are where you are because of your habits. You may change where you are by changing your habits. But the deepest truth is this: change your habits long enough, and you don't just change where you are, you change who you are." That's the real secret the 20% live by. Why identity is the final lock. Identity removes negotiation. When action is who you are, you don't debate it. Identity multiplies habits. One new identity spawns dozens of aligned habits automatically. Identity sustains for life. Motivation fades. Systems wobble. But identity endures. The 80% versus the 20%. The 80% say, "I try to be disciplined." The 20% say, "I am disciplined." That single difference rewrites destiny. How to rewrite identity. 1. Use identity language. Stop saying "I'm trying." Start saying "I am." Your words shape belief. 2. Collect proof. Stack evidence daily until your mind accepts the identity as truth. 3. Surround yourself with reinforcement. Be around people who reflect the identity you want. Their standards become your standards. 4. Live the role relentlessly. Every action is a rehearsal. Each repetition engraves the new identity deeper. Macro-micro transformation. At the macro level, identity shapes your destiny. At the micro level, it's just a choice today, to act like the person you want to become. Do it enough, and that choice becomes permanent. Your shift today. Stop drifting in the 80%. Stop hoping results will someday appear. Stop living as someone who tries but never becomes. Instead, step into the 20%. Install the habits. Build the system. Rewrite your identity. Because the secret the 20% know is this: once discipline becomes identity, winning isn't random. It isn't luck. It's inevitable.